Okay, so today's video, are you a spiritual scapegoat? First of all, what does spiritual scapegoat even mean? Well, a spiritual scapegoat is basically a person who is very keen to please others, is very quick to ignore their own voice, their own intuition, their own needs, and to prioritize other people above themselves, you know. And if you're someone who finds yourself in situations quite often, whether it be with friends or colleagues, perhaps your family, so you know, brothers, sisters, parents, cousins, and you know, partners, even maybe your own children, if you find yourself in situations where you're constantly kind of trying to pacify everyone else, and what's happening is that slowly but surely you're feeling more and more frustrated and angry and resentful and pissed off because your own needs are not being met, and you feel like you're neglecting yourself, and so is everyone else. You know, everyone else just seems to be doing what they fucking feel like. Then this video is for you. And the spiritual element comes into play basically from the concept of where, if you are, I mean, we're all on a spiritual path, but if you are on a consciously spiritual path where you're doing your very best to be spiritual, to align with your spiritual beliefs on a daily basis, and that is actually creating conflict and confusion for you, because on one hand you're feeling like, well, I want to be a good person, I want to be forgiving, I want to be loving and compassionate and understanding, but then on the flip side I'm being treated like shit. So how do I navigate this? How do I find a middle path that is in alignment with my truth, but at the same time isn't going to cause World War III? Then this video is for you. What I've found, and what I myself have personally struggled with over the years, is this idea that being spiritual is all about love and forgiveness, and basically seeing everyone as, you know, they are me and I am them, and it's all kind of, you know, we attract what we are and all this kind of thing. You reap what you sow, you know, and love thy neighbour as thyself and all this kind of stuff. You know, it's very difficult, it's very hard to set loving boundaries, and I know that from a very young child, what's kind of really gone against me even more so is the fact that my father hurt me a hell of a lot when I was little in the name of religion. You know, he basically left me out in the cold. He didn't really prioritise me. He was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. He came out of that religion, met my mum, they had me, and then when I was about 3 or 4 he went back into it. My parents, they divorced when I was about 7, and then 7 or 8, and then he very quickly remarried a Jehovah's Witness, and she had kids who, you know, she was raised in that religion. So I was kind of pushed out on the periphery of everything, and you know, so my core issues and wounds, if you like, my childhood wounds, a lot of it has been as a direct result of religion and spirituality, right? So from a very young age, when it's come to relationships, especially relationships with men, I've been made to feel like I have to jump through hoops in order to please, and in order to be loved and validated and approved of. So, you know, being a spiritual scapegoat is something that I have been for many, many years, and the idea of spirituality has been very confusing for me, because it is ultimately all about forgiveness and love and kindness and compassion and empathy and understanding and all this stuff. So the core message of this video today really identify that you're a spiritual scapegoat and what to do about it. Ultimately, how to break that pattern and actually align with the true essence and concept of spirituality, rather than use it as a reason to keep tolerating the bullshit. Because to be abused and to be mistreated by others is not acceptable, and no God or greater power would condone that or say, oh, that's okay. And as I mentioned, that because of my core beliefs that I developed as a young child, which I'm now challenging and completely turning on their head, I've had this kind of feeling for many years, where I felt like I've had to please others and put other people before myself. I've struggled with putting myself first. And from a law of attraction perspective, if you're watching my channel, then naturally you are aware of the law of attraction and what it means. The law of attraction is all about, we attract what we are. And, when it does come to abuse and being treated badly, I've been in multiple abusive relationships. It does throw you, because it makes you think, well, how can like attract like if I'm not like that, but I'm attracting that? And what it usually is and what it means, for me, the spiritual perspective of it and the assignment, if you like, is if we are feeling a void within us and we're looking to fill that void through a person, or through love, relationships, people pleasing, doing things for others in order to make ourselves feel better. It can come in so many different forms. It can come in drugs, it can come in alcohol, it can come in food. Emotional and comfort eating is huge. It can come in sex, gambling, shopping. It can come in all sorts of addictive behaviours and patterns. When we're looking to fill a void within us, or avoid pain that we are deep down enduring and trying to deal with, what happens is we will be given the lessons that we need in order to progress and to develop and to ascend and move forward with our life purpose on our spiritual path, right? To fully evolve and become the people that we were born here to be from a spiritual perspective, right? To be of greater service to others. So what happens is that lesson will keep coming back over and over and over and over and over again. And it will, it will be a different face, different place, but same situation, same dynamic, same bullshit, right? And in terms of the law of attraction, what happens is like will attract like, but in terms of like from a polar opposite perspective. So, for example, in the case of an abusive relationship, me being a people pleaser and wanting to validate myself and gain that approval from others through jumping through hoops, through, giving love and giving, and then that other person is kind of just taking. I mean, it's not always as black and white as that. It's usually a combination of both. But what happens is you tend to attract someone who, even though on face value it might seem like their behaviour and their actions are the opposite, what's actually happening is you're both coming from a place of fear and you're both coming from a place of lack. So what happens is codependency and toxicity starts to be born from that, right? And then you start to bounce off of each other and the situation gets worse. And when you throw the whole spiritual aspect into it, it gets to a stage where the momentum and the situation is unbearable. It becomes intolerable. It gets to a point where and especially if you are sort of spiritually awakened or aware, if you like, you have that conscious awareness, it starts to become harder and harder and harder. But what's tripped me up, and no doubt what's tripped you up, and this is where the scapegoat element comes in, is if we're busy over spiritualizing a situation and not looking at the facts as they stand, it gets to a point where you end up losing your mind because you're trying to justify their behaviour, your behaviour, and you're trying to find a path that is founded on peace and harmony and tranquility, but it's just not happening. And the reason it's not happening is because what I've found, and I think the perfect example is, when I got married, my husband, my ex-husband, he was extremely manipulative, and the emotional and mental abuse that I tolerated from him was, it's sort of indescribable, really, in terms of the way in which it affected me and the mark it left on me. I was high on the day that I got married. I got high before the wedding, and I was high when I exchanged my wedding vows. I can't even really remember being there and doing it, because deep down there was a voice within me that was saying, what are you doing? You don't need to do this. But because I loved him, and because I wanted so much to believe in the dream and the vision, I allowed him to breadcrumb me. I allowed a situation to unfold that was totally wrong, and even though I felt that intuition and that instinct within me was saying, this is wrong, I still went along with it, and I still allowed it to continue because of my love for him. And for a long time it felt like I was actually doing the right thing, even though as I said, instinctively I knew I wasn't. I felt that I wasn't. I was constantly trying to justify it in my head by saying, yeah, but to be spiritual is to be loving and forgiving and kind, and I was making excuses for him, basically. That's what I was doing, because I was justifying his behaviour, and I was slapping a spiritual label on it and saying, it's okay, and just praying and hoping for things to get better. But what the actual assignment was, really looking back now, was for me to stand up for myself and to love myself in a way that I never had before. And I remember it got to a head where I was walking through, I've shared this story in other ways. I wrote an article, I think, I put it on a sales page, where I've shared this, where I came very close to, I was walking through Waterloo Station one evening. I was working at a hotel on Bond Street at the time in an executive role. Good job, but I hated it. And I just remember it being really, really, really busy. And everyone was kind of rushing to get to their platforms, and I was sort of being jostled from side to side, because I was literally, it got to a stage where I never wanted to go home. I'd sort of be literally trying to kill time just to delay having to go home and to see him. And I remember looking over at the trains and thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I hate my life. I hate who I am, because it's like I don't have a voice. I don't even know who the fuck I am anymore. I don't know what's happening. And I just, in that moment, and it makes me tearful thinking about it, I remember I said a silent prayer, and I said, look, I need help. I really, really need help. Please help me, because I don't know what else to do, and I don't want to be here anymore. Please help me. online. And I remember it was funny how from that moment onwards, I felt completely guided. And what happened is, as time went by, as the weeks and the months unfolded, this strength within me and this voice within me just got louder and clearer, and it was like I knew what to do. It was almost like I was being carried and being told, go here, do this, make that phone call, send that email. And it was incredible how things just lined up for me, and the path revealed itself to me. And of course, it wasn't all like roses and sunshine and lollipops from that moment onwards. But I remember from that moment onwards, every time I felt that state of desperation or fear or a feeling of, overwhelmed, like I don't know what to do, desperation, I would pray. And the more I prayed and the more I meditated and the more I started to develop my own spiritual practice, that spiritual essence came in, and that energy, that power, literally, of course that's the whole idea of spirituality, isn't it? Is that we believe in something greater than ourselves. It came in and it started to reorganize everything for me. And even, despite the fact that I genuinely wanted things to work out with me and my ex-husband, it became clearer and clearer to me that it just wasn't going to happen. And the only way that I could really make progress and ascend and evolve and become, a better version of myself, which, I don't really like that expression, that's one for a better phrase. It was like I knew what I had to do, and I was given the strength to do it. And I remember telling him and saying, right, I've had enough, you've got 1 month to leave, because I owned the property, he didn't. And I said, you've got 1 month to leave, I've decided that's it. And he didn't take me seriously, he always kind of would make excuses and sort of create delayed tactics to try and, confuse me or make me question my own judgment and so on. And I remember it got to a point where he ended up, it's not funny, but at the time it was horrible, but I remember I became so strong and clear in my conviction that despite his shit that he used to throw at me, I remember he actually ended up walking off in the middle of the rain and with a pillow under his arm that I'd given him, because I said to him on the day when the deadline had come, I said, I gave you a month, what have you done? And I knew in that moment, and a lot of people say, well, that's not very spiritual, but it was, because I'd been fair, I'd been kind, considering everything that we'd gone through together and the shit that he'd pulled. It got to a stage where I was like, no, it's either you or me. I have to choose myself, I have to choose my own sanity, I have to choose my own peace of mind, because whatever happens next, it's important that I'm taken seriously and that my own needs and my own voice is acknowledged and heard. And if I can't do that for myself, I can't expect anyone else to. And it came from such a place of strength. There was actually times where, I would be talking to him, and no doubt you've probably had moments like this as well, where you're talking and you're a bit sort of like, oh, I'm not sure what to say, and it's, you're a bit nervous. But then you'll be talking and it's almost like you'll suddenly think to yourself, shit, like where did that come from? And there's this almost like this power within you just comes to the surface and does it for you. And you're like, wow, and it's just such a feeling of empowerment. That is spirituality. That is God, the divine, the universe, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing, ultimately. That is the perfect example of a greater power coming in to assist you and to help you do what you can't do for yourself. situation over to that power in a state of complete surrender, which is scary. It is very scary, because we want certain things and we're emotionally invested and attached, and it is a scary place to be, to relinquish that control. But what you have to remember is that control that we feel we have, we believe we have, it isn't really control. What it is it's the ego, and it's our negative core beliefs that are really just trying to keep us on the same path that we've been stuck on. And the subconscious mind is very clever. Fear is very clever in getting us to act and behave in a certain way that we believe is for our best interests, but actually what it does is it just prolongs our own misery. So, in terms of being a spiritual scapegoat, if you feel like you have been a spiritual scapegoat for sorry, I've just lost my words. If you feel like you've been a spiritual scapegoat for quite a while now, and in multiple ways in your life, throughout your life, my best advice to you is, if the main signs that you're a spiritual scapegoat is, one, when you're with someone or a group of people and you feel anxious, you feel like you're not really being heard, or your opinions don't matter, you're never asked any real questions about, what would you like to do, what do you think, what do you feel about that. If it's not ever a two-way type of relationship or conversation, I've had friends in the past, not so much now because I've cut them out, but I've had friends in the past where I've had a conversation with them and the whole conversation has been about them, and I've put down the phone and I thought, I haven't got anything out of that conversation. Do you know what I mean? I could have I could have just put the phone on the side and let them talk, and that would have been it, and they'd have had exactly the same type of conversation, because what I said wouldn't have really come into it. So it can come in all sorts of different ways, but if you find that you are living right now in a situation, in a dynamic where when you're with a specific person or a specific group of people and you just feel drained, you just, it's an effort to be with them, to smile, to go, hi, yeah, how are you? And it's it's not enjoyable, it's draining, it's boring, but you're, trying to be nice, trying to, be good and kind and spiritual. You don't have to do any of that. And to take it to the other extreme, the most important way to identify whether or not you are a spiritual scapegoat is if it is a specific relationship, a romantic relationship, or a friend or a relative, someone who you do really care about and love. Think about how you feel when you're with them versus when you're not with them, because that will tell you everything you need to know. And most importantly of all, that feeling of when you're with someone and you can't quite explain it, but it's this feeling of almost feeling like you don't have a voice, but not even verbally. It's almost like it's a deeper feeling than that. It's more like when I'm with that person, I lose myself completely, because I just feel like my right to think and feel what I do, my right to express myself, it's snatched from me, and it's a soul destroying feeling. It is so, it breaks your spirit. And that is a feeling that you will feel, and you will feel it in your heart, and you will feel that quiet inner voice literally being snuffled, being gagged. That is one of the purest, clearest signs that, one, you're a spiritual scapegoat, and two, there is nothing spiritual about that situation at all. Because we were put on this earth to shine. on this planet to align with our true purpose. And we're given these assignments, we're given these situations to help propel us forward. But unless we can see the assignments for what they are, in terms of loving ourselves and in terms of leading by example, we're not walking our truth, we're not on our spiritual path. Because if we can't be good for ourselves, we can't be good for anyone else. And one of my most popular videos actually on this YouTube channel is why self-love is the opposite of selfish, which the banner will appear up at the top. I'll put it up there for you, so go ahead and check that out. But yeah, you know, there is nothing spiritual about a situation where you feel like you don't have a voice, where you feel like you what you think, what you feel, what you say, what you have, what your opinion is irrelevant. That's not good, that's not right in any context. Because someone who truly loves you would respect, they might not agree with you, but they would respect that you have an opinion too, and that your thoughts and feelings are just as important as theirs. And you know, in terms of assignments and moving away from this whole moving towards it actually, this whole spiritual concept that, you know, people love to say, well, that's not very spiritual, whatever. Actually, walking away, and it is the hardest thing, it can be the most heartbreaking of things when you love someone and you're emotionally invested, but walking away from them is actually helping them as well. It's not only helping you, but it's helping them. Because if you're going to just continue to put up with the behaviour and the you know, bad treatment that you're on the receiving end of, they're not going to learn anything either. It's just going to continue, and it's going to get worse. Because what will happen is you will get more hurt and get more resentful and get more like, I hate this situation, I hate my life, and you will start to feel more and more kind of small and inadequate, and they will just start to get more and more frustrated. They will start to get more and more like, well, you know, because what you have to remember is that if they're coming from a place of fear and you're coming from a place of fear, where you're bouncing off each other, that momentum is just going to increase, and it's going to get harder and harder and just more damaging for all parties. And if we're not part of the solution, then we're part of the problem. So it is about sometimes stepping away for your own sake, for your own self-love, self-respect, to acknowledge and value who you are, why you're here, what your purpose is, and to, you know, in terms of handling that fear and stepping out of your comfort zone and doing things differently, breaking those patterns and challenging those core beliefs that you've got going on that have landed you in this situation and perhaps other ones similar to it, is to hand over to a higher power and say, look, I'm struggling, I need help, please show me the way. And I can guarantee you now that the way will be provided to you, and it will be in a way that is enjoyable and that is easy, and that most importantly of all feels good. It feels right. And you know what, you don't even need to explain yourself to other people. You don't need to make any decisions today, you don't need to have the conversation, you don't need to create any conflict. You know, it's about allowing that higher power to step in and take care of things for you. And trust me, when you know and you see those signs being revealed to you, you'll know them and you'll see them for what they are. So trust that. Trust yourself, most importantly of all, because however you're feeling right now, you have every right to feel that way, no matter what anyone else says. And that's another video actually I did, which is quite popular, and I'll put the link up below and up at the top. Why you shouldn't listen to others if you want to be happy, because sometimes that can create even more confusion for you, because everyone is going to have their own opinion and they're not all going to be the same. And if you're doubting yourself, it's actually steering you away from that centre. So that's my message for you today. Lots of love and light to you. My thoughts and prayers are with you. Good luck.